AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me and my partner, even though it's causing a huge family fight. I, 29F, live with my partner, Sam, 31M, in a small two-bedroom apartment in a city that's not cheap to live in. We've been together for almost 5 years and have lived together for 3. Our relationship is really solid, and we've carefully built a space that feels like home to both of us. Sam works remotely, and I work full-time in marketing. We both make decent money, but also budget carefully because the rent and living expenses here are brutal. My younger sister, Emma, 25F, has been in a relationship with her fiancé, Mike, 28M, for about 2 years now. Emma and I have always been close, but in recent years, we've grown apart because our lives have gone in very different directions. Emma has always been more impulsive and less financially stable. She's had a few jobs, but nothing consistent and tend to rely a lot on our parents financially. Mike, on the other hand, is charming but also has a history of being flaky with jobs and commitments. Emma and Mike recently got engaged, and they've been planning a wedding for next year. About 2 months ago, Emma called me out of the blue, very stressed and upset. She and Mike had gotten evicted from their apartment because they couldn't keep up with rent. Apparently, they've fallen behind on payments for months, and the landlord finally gave them the boot. They didn't have a backup plan, and with the wedding coming up and Emma's job being part-time and unstable, she panicked. She asked if Mike could move in with me and Sam temporarily while they got back on their feet. I was taken aback. Our place is small, and while we're happy to support family in emergencies, I wasn't comfortable with the idea of someone moving in indefinitely, especially someone I don't really know well and who has a history of being irresponsible. I told Emma I needed some time to think it over, and that's Sam, and I needed to talk about it. When I brought up with Sam, he was immediately against it. He values our privacy and stability and was worried about potential conflicts and the strain on our living situation. I agreed with him. We decided to politely decline Emma's request and suggested that they look into other options, like staying with our parents or finding a short-term sublet. I called Emma and explained that while I understood their situation was tough, our apartment just wasn't a good fit for having more people living with us. I offered to help them look for other options online and said we could lend some money to help with a deposit on a new place if needed. Emma was upset and accused me of being selfish and not caring about her or Mike. She said Mike had nowhere else to go and that it was family, so I should just step up. Things got worse from there. Our parents sided with Emma, saying I was being harsh and unsupportive. They think since it's family, I should do more. Emma started posting on social media about how I was turning my back on my own sister in her time of need, which has caused a lot of tension with mutual friends and extended family. I've tried to stay firm but compassionate, saying I want to help in ways that don't disrupt my home life. I've offered financial help searching for places, and emotional support, but no living together. Emma called me selfish and said she no longer wants a relationship with me if I won't help them this way. I feel stuck. On one hand, I want to help my sister and future brother-in-law. On the other, I don't want to sacrifice my living space and the stability Sam and I have built. I'm worried that if I give in, it will set a precedent where they expect more from me in the future, and my boundaries will be ignored. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with me and Sam despite their tough situation? Or am I justified in protecting my home and relationship? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in after he lost his job and ended up homeless. So, this is a long story, but I'm going to try to break it down clearly. I, 29F, live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city, working full-time as a graphic designer. I share the apartment with my dog and have a good balance of social and work life. My sister, 32F, lives about an hour away and has been dating this guy. Let's call him Jake, 30M, for about a year. Jake has always seemed a bit unstable to me. When they started dating, I was hesitant, but my sister was smitten and told me he was just going through a rough patch, coming out of a bad relationship and some financial struggles. I tried to give him a chance, but the red flags were always there. He often canceled plans last minute. He seemed to avoid work, and sometimes he was kind of rude or dismissive when I visited. My sister saw only the good in him. Anyway, about 3 months ago, Jake lost his job at a local warehouse. From what I gathered, he was let go for repeated tardiness and poor performance. My sister was upset, but decided to support him, helping him look for other jobs and letting him stay with her temporarily. Things seemed rocky but manageable. Then, about 6 weeks ago, Jake got into a fight with my sister. I won't go into all the details, but it ended with her telling him to leave her apartment. He had nowhere to go and ended up couch surfing with friends and sometimes crashing at a shelter. My sister felt bad and was worried about him. That's when she started asking me if Jake could move in with me temporarily. I said no outright. I have a small apartment, I'm living on my own with my dog, and I work full-time. I can't afford extra utilities or deal with the tension. I told her that if Jake wanted to stay with me, he would have to pay rent or at least contribute something, and he'd need to show that he was making serious efforts to find a job. My sister was furious. She called me cold and unhelpful, accusing me of not being family-oriented and abandoning her and Jake when they needed me. I explained that my responsibility was to my own household and that I couldn't sacrifice my living situation for someone who wasn't making an effort to help themselves. She kept pushing, saying Jake was in a bad place and needed a break and that I could just help them out for a few weeks. I repeated that I couldn't and told her she should support Jake in finding work and a place to live independently. A few days later, Jake actually reached out to me directly, asking if he could come stay with me for a little while. I told him the same thing I told my sister. No, unless he had a plan and could contribute. He sounded desperate and upset, but I stuck to my boundaries. This led to a lot of tension in my family. My parents sided mostly with my sister and Jake, saying I should be more supportive. My friends mostly agree with me, but I'm starting to wonder if I was too harsh. Since then, my sister has barely spoken to me, and Jake posted a message on social media complaining that I was the worst sister-in-law and refused to help someone in need. My parents have said I should at least let him stay a night or two, but I'm worried that would open a door I don't want to open. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in after he lost his job and became homeless? Or should I have just put family first and helped out despite the inconvenience? AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter move back in after what she did to my son? I, 45M, have been married to my wife Cara, 43F, for 6 years. She has a daughter from a previous relationship, Alyssa, 17F, and I have a son, Jake, 16M. When we got married, our kids were 11 and 10. We moved into a house together and did our best to blend the family. For the most part, it was fine. Alyssa was a bit standoffish, but not disrespectful, and Jake is a quiet kid who mostly kept to himself. They weren't close, but there weren't major issues until last year. That's when things went off the rails. Last summer, Alyssa started dating this guy, Brandon, 18M, who Cara and I weren't thrilled about. He was cocky, had been suspended twice for vaping and fighting, and just gave off bad vibes. But Cara thought she'd push Alyssa away if she forbid it, so we tried to just keep communication open and set rules. Alyssa, predictably, started sneaking around. Then in January, Jake started having anxiety attacks. He wouldn't eat, barely spoke, and was constantly on edge. We took him to a therapist. After a few sessions, he finally opened up. Alyssa and Brandon had been bullying him for months. It started with teasing, then escalated to pranks. They locked him out of the house once in the snow for 20 minutes as a joke. Brandon would call him slurs, film him when he was upset, and mock his stutter, which had returned due to stress. Alyssa either laughed or filmed it herself. They shared some of these videos on a group chat with friends. I was livid. Cara was horrified too, but more in a how could she do this kind of way than a we need to act immediately mindset. I wasn't waiting. I told Alyssa she was grounded indefinitely and that Brandon was never allowed near her house again. She lost her phone, social media, everything. She barely spoke to me, but had a meltdown at Kara about how I was ruining her life. 3 weeks later, I found out Alyssa had snuck Brandon into the house while we were gone. Jake walked in on them in the kitchen. Brandon called him a spineless freak, and Alyssa laughed. Jake ran out of the house and stayed at his friend's for the night. That was it for me. I told Alyssa she was no longer welcome in our house. Kara argued, cried, begged me to reconsider. I said no. She could go live with her dad, who lives about 90 minutes away. Her behavior went beyond normal teen rebellion. This was cruel, targeted harassment of her stepbrother, who'd never done anything to her. I needed to protect my son. Kara reluctantly agreed. Alyssa packed up and moved in with her dad in February. Things have been calmer since. Jake is doing better, therapy is helping, and he's even joined a D&D group at school. He's laughing again. The house feels like a safe place. But now, in October, Kara is asking me to let Alyssa come back. Apparently, she's been doing better at her dad's, got a part-time job, and is really sorry for what happened. Kara wants to give her a second chance before she turns 18. She says Alyssa wants to make amends and come home. I said no. I told Kara I'm glad Alyssa is doing better, but she hasn't spoken a word to Jake. No apology, no text, nothing. I'm not putting my son in the same house as the person who tormented him for a year. At least not until he says he feels safe doing so. And right now, he doesn't. Kara's now saying I'm being unforgiving, that she's her daughter, that people make mistakes. She says I'm being cruel and cold-hearted, that Alyssa was just a kid making stupid decisions. And if we don't show her grace, she'll spiral again. I told her being a teenager doesn't give someone a pass to torment someone else, and I will never choose someone who hurt my son over my son himself. Full stop. Now Kara is barely speaking to me. She's sleeping in the guest room. She says she understands my feelings, but that I'm punishing Alyssa too harshly. That keeping a mother and daughter apart is wrong. Some of my in-laws agree with her. They've been messaging me, saying Alyssa deserves to come home, that I need to be the bigger person, and that I'm acting like a dictator in my own home. But my parents, and even Jake's therapist, say I'm right to keep boundaries strong until Jake feels safe. Still, I'm second-guessing myself. Did I go too far? Am I being too rigid? AITA for not letting my stepdaughter move back in after what she did to my son?